Welcome to the Fresh Start for Life podcast, the show that will help you get out of debt and start living the financial life of your dreams. Now, here's your host, Don Golden.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Fresh Start for Life podcast, episode number 7, Teaching Your Kids About Money, Part 2. In this episode today, we're going to talk about teaching our kids about giving, saving, spending, and I know you're going to find this hard to believe. I found it hard to believe too, but this is in the book, budgeting. But before we get into all that, I want to tell you about my setup for today. Normally, I record these episodes in my office, my law office, not my home office. I'm still working on that. We have work to do on a room that we're turning into a home office, and that's not done yet. So I typically record these episodes from my office, my law office. I did not get that done this week while I was there, and today's Friday. I typically do not go to the office on Fridays. I have things that I do around the house on Fridays. So I need to get this episode recorded because I try to have these out every other Wednesday, and I have a deadline to hopefully get this done and edited and everything so that it will be published next Wednesday. Some people look forward to having these episodes every other Wednesday. So I try to get them out timely. I need to get this episode recorded today. So I'm recording from my house, and I read online that a really good place to record a podcast from, if you're in a bind, is a closet. So that's what I'm doing. I am in my clothes closet in my bedroom. They say the acoustics are really good because of all the clothes. The sound doesn't have anything to bounce off of. The clothes in the closet kind of absorb everything. I am literally sitting in the closet with my computer, my microphone, my headphones, and I'm recording this episode from my closet. Don't know if you can tell a difference or not in the sound quality. I'm looking forward to hearing this in a little bit when I'm done. But yeah, thought I'd share that with you because it's kind of strange. Before we get into the other topics for this week, the new topics, I want to just go over the last episode. We talked about work. And I told you that I was going to have a family meeting with my wife and my 3 children. And we were going to talk about how they were going to have to start earning money around the house by doing jobs around the house. We had that meeting. I did tell you it was going to be on Mother's Day. Unfortunately, we had too much going on Mother's Day, and it did not happen. Part of that was probably me just not being able to stand the idea of potentially ruining Mother's Day. I don't know. But for whatever reason, everybody was running around and they're kind of doing their own thing a little bit after we did a little celebration for Tamra, my wife. We really celebrated the night before Mother's Day. So everybody was kind of going their own direction on the actual Mother's Day. So we didn't get around to having our meeting on Sunday. So we had it Thursday, and we ended up meeting. I told you about this pizza place that we like to go to. It's in our neighborhood. And they have video games and all that stuff that my youngest daughter, really likes to play. So anyway, we all met there after our activities. I went straight from work. My son went straight from hockey practice, and my wife picked up the girls and came. And we all met at the pizza place, and we had our conversation. First, we ate, and then I went over everything that we talked about on the last episode. And I went over what I wanted the kids to do and how they were going to earn their money and what we expected of them and everything. And I'm going to tell you that I think the meeting went a little better than I thought in a lot of ways. The kids were very open to this. They certainly liked the idea of having some money. They didn't necessarily love the idea of having to do the chores that were associated with it. And I'm going to get into a little bit of the detail on that with you. My son actually, he doesn't think he wants to be a lawyer, but he could end up being a lawyer someday, the way he made a very good argument on why he shouldn't mow the lawn. He made a very good argument about the fact that we're going to be doing some traveling this summer. And if we cancel the lawn guy, the lawn won't get mowed, and the lawn grows really fast in the summertime, and we may get in trouble with the HOA and so forth and so on. Tamara ended up agreeing with him. And so we are going to keep the lawn service. So we got to find another job for him. We haven't really come up with that yet, but I'm working on that because he's got to have enough to do to earn the money that I know he's going to require for the summer. Anyway, he made a really good argument. My wife bought into it and convinced me that really we probably ought to keep the lawn guy. So everything else went great though. Ella, I was most concerned about telling Ella about the jobs because she doesn't like to do a whole lot around the house. And to be honest with you, she's not crazy about doing a lot around the house still, even after the meeting. But what she was excited about was having a bank account with a debit card. That was what really got her excited. And, it really only takes one thing to get a kid excited about something. And hopefully that will help them buy in. So I think Ella's kind of bought in a little bit. She likes the idea of having money deposited into a bank account for her that she has a debit card for. So there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with a debit card. And one of the reasons why she said that she wanted to have a debit card because she thinks it's going to be easier to track her money. Right now, she gets cash, and she's not good about taking care of her cash. Her cash is laying all over her bedroom. She'll leave it downstairs on a table, just laying around, and we have to constantly tell her, Ella, take care of your money. And she doesn't really do that, and she thinks it's going to be easier with a debit card and a checking account and stuff, and it's really just not true. So although I am going to set her up with a bank account and have her debit card and everything, we're definitely going to go into a lot of lessons about how to keep track of the money in the checking account. We're going to be keeping that checking account balanced every single month. And I'm going to teach her how to use the app so that she can check her balance regularly to make sure she's not overdrafting and things like that. But I'm also, at least for her, and I don't know, probably for my son too, Dave and Rachel Cruz in their book, remember we're talking about their book, Smart Money, Smart Kids. They do recommend that even for teenagers, that they use a modified envelope system. And I think that that's what I'm going to teach Ella. I think she needs an envelope system for her cash because even if she's going to keep the bulk of her money in her checking account and use a debit card, she still needs to know how to take care of cash. And right now, she's not really doing a very good job of that. So we are going to use the envelope system for the older kids too. And I am going to teach them about where to put their money in the envelopes and stuff like that so they can keep track of it. And also, it's a good visualization about how much money you actually have and how much you have available to spend. The other thing that Dave talked about in the book a little bit later on is with the debit cards, psychologically speaking, you tend to spend a little bit more money sometimes when you're using plastic instead of cash. So when you use a debit card, it's kind of like maybe not real to you. It's not like real money because you don't actually see it leave your hands. You don't see it physically leaving the bank account. So I think there's been some studies done, and Dave quotes some studies that show that, when people use plastic, they tend to spend more money. Since Ella is not good, she admits that she's not good at managing her cash, keeping track of her cash. We are going to teach her Dave Ramsey's envelope system for her to keep track of her cash. And I think that's going to be good. We'll also teach that to our son, Andrew. It doesn't hurt to know the cash envelope system as well. He definitely is keeping a little bit more cash in his pocket now since he is reffing. He'll cash a check and keep some cash. And I'd like him to start putting that into some envelopes so that he knows what he is designating that money for, basically. All right. Well, that pretty much covers the meeting and what's happened since. Well, I do have to update you a little bit more. Actually, we did decide that we weren't going to focus so much on the kids starting their chores until after the final exams for the big kids. They're right in the middle of final exams still right now. I know this may sound too lenient or too easy, but I didn't want them to have to adjust to a new routine while they're studying for exams. School's number one, and I need them to do very well, hopefully in their finals or on their finals, I should say. So we decided we're going to start this week after next. Next week is the last week of finals. School schedule's crazy this year for our our two high schoolers. But anyway, they don't finish school until next Friday. So we'll start this in full with them next Friday. But they've started a little bit. Anna certainly has, my 9-year-old. She has actively done the dishwasher. She's done the silverware 3 or 4 times this week. And she also did a big job, which is the towels. We told you that we wanted her to fold towels. And, my wife was questioning whether or not she was going to be able to do it. She's pretty small. And my wife showed her how she would like her to fold the towels. And as it turns out, she's a little too small to fold the towels exactly the way my wife taught her. But she figured a way out. She used the coffee table to help her fold the towels. The towels that she folded look exactly like Tamara wanted them. So although she can't do it physically the way Tamara wanted it done, she found a way to get it done using the help of the coffee table. So cute. I took some pictures. I'm going to try to post them on the website at freshstartforlife.com/podcasts. I'm going to try to get those posted because I'd love for you to see Anna folding towels. We did one of her actually folding the towel and how she was using the coffee table. And then I showed a picture of her with a stack of towels. She was so proud. And that's one of the things that we're teaching the kids. We want them to be proud about what they've done, and we want to teach them to have pride in their work and to have pride in their home because they're taking care of it. And I think that definitely showed in these pictures that I took of Anna. She was very proud that she was able to fold these towels. I know this sounds like a little thing, but to a 9-year-old, it was a big deal. And you know what? I think it's a great learning thing for her. And I'm really excited to see where she's going to go with these chores and her excitement about earning money. Sunday's going to be her first payday. She will get her first set of money this coming Sunday. And I'm really excited to give it to her. Andrew also started his stuff a little bit. He did his own load of laundry this week, which was awesome. That takes a lot of burden off Tamra. It's one less person that she's got to do laundry for. And hopefully we'll get Ella going on her laundry once school finishes up for the year. He did not take the trash out this week like I wanted him to, but I'm not going to worry about that until after school's over. And then we're going to get serious about them doing their chores. The chart's not quite done yet. Tamara hasn't really finished the chart that we're going to put up so that we can keep track of their daily chores. But that is all in the works. So excited about where this is going to go. Excited about teaching them the value of money, that the money comes from work. And then we're going to start on the next things, which we're going to talk about today. And that is the things that you can do with money. The 3 main things are spend, give, and save. And there's a place for all of these things in our lives and also in our children's lives. And it's our job to teach them about all of these things. Now, in reading the book, there's a chapter in the book about each of these topics. There's a lot of little good tidbits, but the main point that I want you to get is this. The best thing that we can do to teach our kids about how to spend, save, and give is become a good role model for them. We need to model the behavior that we want them to exhibit themselves. So how do we do that? We make good choices, right? We make good decisions with our money. We save. We have an emergency fund so that if the car breaks down, we don't flip out. We've got money set aside to replace the tires that need to be replaced or whatever, so that our kids see that we are not falling into panic every time there's a little hiccup that costs money. So that's just one example. Another example is obviously when we want to teach our kids to be good givers by us becoming good givers. You probably already are. You may be already giving money and everything, but let's share this with the children and let them know that we are givers and that you show them physically that you're doing it or, verbally. Like for me, for instance, we no longer put money in the offering plate at church. With online giving nowadays, I do things online, and there's no way really for my kids to know that so much. They see that we're not putting cash in the plate or we're not putting envelopes in the plate. So I need to share with them that I give money to the church online. They will certainly understand that. They are of the age that's typical, right? Everything is done online and they'll get it, but they don't know that right now because they don't know what I'm doing. I do it, from the office. Typically I'm doing these transfers online and they don't know that I'm doing that. So that's something that I have to do. I have to have a conversation with them so that they know that we're donating money to our church. I also want to do a little bit better job. I give clothes to Goodwill and places like that. I need to start including them in this stuff. I need to take them with me when we're going down to Goodwill and doing these donations and everything so that they see that we're doing it. Or maybe they can just help us gather the clothes up and put them in the bags that we're going to take to Goodwill. Whatever it is, we need to do a little bit better job on teaching them about giving, really. I think that my children are natural givers. They are children that I think want to give and want to help people. They seem to have those qualities. So I just wanted to do a better job of teaching them, not teaching them, but showing them that we are a family of givers. What was the other thing? Spending. Okay, so we talked about savings a little bit. We talked about giving. Now let's talk about spending a little bit. Now, I'm going to admit that we don't spend our money as wisely as we could. Tamara and I. Typically, we don't do a good enough job of planning our spending. And this is something that we're going to work on. This really brings me to the meat of this episode this week. And that's budgeting. I know that people don't like to talk about budgeting and budgets and things like that. Like Tamara, for a long time, really felt like budgets were constraining, or in her mind that it was going to prevent her from being able to spend money. And that's just simply not true. The way Dave Ramsey teaches about budgeting, it's really freeing, because when you have an expense or you have something that you're going to spend money on, you don't have to feel guilty about it because you've spent it on paper in advance. So now let's get into that. It's hard enough for people to wrap their head around doing a budget for themselves. But in the book, they teach, Dave and Rachel suggest to us that we should be teaching our teenagers about budgeting. And it's going to seem strange sitting down with a teenager that may only have $100, $200 to work with each month to budget that out. But it's important because it's something that they should be doing later on in life. When they're an adult, it's easier to go into adulthood knowing how to budget when you're making, $30, $40, $50,000 a year, and you've got to allocate all that money. You've already done it as a teenager. Budgeting is absolutely one of the things that I think we should be teaching our kids in school. But there really are no budget courses for kids in school that I know of. At least my kids haven't taken any. I know that for sure. So it is really up to us to fill in that gap and teach our kids about budgeting. And that's one of the most important things you can do to win with money, really, is to budget. And that's one of Dave Ramsey's big things. He believes that you need to plan. Every dollar that you spend should be planned. Now, that's not to say that there's going to be or not going to be an emergency or something like that. And that's why you have an emergency fund. And let's start there. So for teenagers, they would like us to encourage our teenagers to also have an emergency fund. And they suggest $500. Now, what is a teenager going to do with an emergency fund? An emergency fund for a teenager can be used for various things. Like, I know for sure that both of my older kids have smashed the screens on their cell phones. And actually more than once. My daughter, I think, did it more than once. And it cost me, over $100 to get that fixed. So when we're teaching our teenagers about money and they're starting to have their own money, that is the perfect thing that they can do with an emergency fund. They can use $100 out of their $500 emergency fund to fix the screen on their phone. Now, if there's some medical emergency or anything like that, of course, that's our responsibility as parents. We're not going to ask them to take money out of their account to go to the emergency room. That's not what that's about. What the emergency fund is for a teenager is for the things that really aren't big time emergencies in life, but they're an emergency to them because they certainly don't want to be without the ability to text their friends. You know what I'm saying? And also, as they start driving and they have a vehicle, they can start taking care of some of their own issues that come up with their vehicle. Let's say they do end up with a flat tire. They could take money out of their emergency fund to replace the tire. Things like that. So those are the kinds of things that teenagers can do with an emergency fund. And I think it's important that they start out early in life learning to save money in case something goes wrong. Because guess what? Something's going to go wrong. And if you don't have the money to pay for it, you have no choice but to go into debt to pay for it. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid children not going into debt as children, but children growing up, not knowing how to manage money, not knowing that they need an emergency fund so that when they do get on their own, they have jobs, they have something come up, they have money in order to cover that emergency so they don't have to use a credit card. That's the important thing, because that's the normal thing. That's what most people think is that they need a credit card for an emergency. And we want to teach them early on, no, we want an emergency fund to take care of an emergency, not a credit card. So anyway, that's off topic slightly because I want to talk about budgeting, but that I do want saving to be one of the number one things on the budget. So how do you do a budget with a teenager? The way I would do it and the way I'm going to do it, we're going to do this conversation probably in the next 2 weeks or so after the kids have finished their exams and they're starting to do their chores and they're starting to get their money. We'll have this conversation because we're going to start budgeting. I think we'll do a budget for June, and you need to do this not once. This isn't a one-time deal. This is an every month thing where you should sit down with your children and teach them about, or actually not teach them, but you sit down with them and you do a budget with them. You help them with the budget. We're their coach. We're here to coach them. We're here to advise them and hopefully help teach them to make good decisions. So we're not going to just send them out and say, do a budget. No, we're going to sit down with them and we're going to go through this and we're going to help them with it. So if you happen to buy the book, Smart Money, Smart Kids, there are budget forms in the back that you can use, or, for teenage budget forms in the back that you can use with your kids. But if you're not planning on buying the book, I would just take a piece of paper, draw a line right straight down the middle, put all on the left-hand side of the paper, call that income. On the right-hand side, you call that expenses. And on the left-hand side, you'll write down all the sources of income that your child's going to have for the month. So it may be from their commissions, it may be from their jobs. For my son, it'll be for his refereeing. Just write down all the different sources of money that you think that they're going to come into for the month, and you will add that up. And that's going to be your left-hand column. And then in the right-hand column, that's where you're going to start listing their expenses. So what are the expenses of a child or a teenager? We already said that we want to teach them about saving. And so that should be one of the first things on the budget is how much are they going to allocate out of that monthly income to saving. And part of that money, if they don't have 500 set up for their emergency fund, part of that savings money should definitely go into the emergency fund until they hit the $500 level. The other thing we want is them to be giving. So we should determine on paper how much they intend to give. It doesn't have to be to church. It can be to anything that they want to give, but they should start giving something each month to something that they believe in, something that they want to support. And that definitely should be part of the budget. Now, then where we will start getting into their expenses. What kind of expenses, like I said before, what kind of expenses does a teenager have? Oh, by the way, too, I failed to mention this. In the income side, I think at the teenage level, at least for my 17-year-old, for sure, I'm going to do this. I am going to give him a certain amount of money over and above what he gets for chores on things that I think I would be spending on him anyway for his daily need type things. Not daily, but, like his haircuts and things like that. I'm going to make him start taking care and planning for this stuff himself. So I'm going to designate a certain amount of money that I'm going to give him each month that will cover things that I would have paid for anyway because he's my child. But I'm going to teach him to manage this money himself and to plan how he's going to spend it himself, and teach him that and my daughter too, but she just doesn't have as many, she doesn't drive yet. So she's not gone, she's usually with us when she's going somewhere. So it's a little easier for us to just pay for it for her. But for my son, who is driving all the time, he's hardly ever home anymore. I want him to have access to money that he's going to need for things that I would be paying for, but I want him to learn how to handle that money himself. So I forgot to mention that. We'll put that in the income column for him and for my younger daughter, my 15-year-old, when she gets old enough to really need that stuff too. But anyway, back to the expenses. So one of the things that teenagers like to spend money on is food. They like to go out to eat with their friends every now and then. I know my son is constantly buying, a water bottle or a Diet Coke out of the soda machine. These soda machines nowadays take debit cards, so it's real easy to swipe a debit card in a soda machine and get a soda out of it. While I'm providing all the money, it's really easy for them, or him really, it's mainly my son, to do that on a regular basis. But when it's his own money and he's got to track it and he's responsible for his own spending, I think he may, and right now he doesn't have a budget. So he just spends money until his debit card doesn't have any money in it. And he calls me and says he needs more money. Well, those days are gone. We're going to, starting in June, we're going to go to this new system where he's going to be responsible for keeping track and only spending what he's going to budget for. So we definitely, they should spend money on some of these things, but they have to plan for it. So we will sit down. We're going to talk about how much money he thinks he needs for things like eating out. Another thing is hair care and cosmetics for girls. So for my son, he gets a haircut every 6 weeks or so. That's something that I feel like we should pay for anyway, but that'll come out of the monthly amount that I give him that he will be managing. So he's going to have to say, in this month, do I need a haircut? If so, that's going to go in the budget. So another thing is gifts. If he knows that he wants to give his girlfriend a gift, he's got a plan for this. He's got a budget for it. That's something that we will talk about and we'll put down on paper. That pretty much covers the personal. Well, there's another one in the personal section. It's music and technology. He definitely enjoys to download music, but right now he's actually got a Spotify account. Oh, that comes out of my debit card, I think. So I think we will talk about maybe having that transferred over to his account once we get him set up with his own checking account. And that's something that we can put in his budget, which is his Spotify premium account. The other thing, or another category, is recreation. In the recreation category, they have things like movies, concerts, sporting events. So, my son doesn't really love to go to the movies, but a lot of kids do. He definitely does love to go to concerts. He just doesn't go to as many as he would like. But that's a category that we need to think about and say, are you intending on going to the movies this month? If so, we'll put down a dollar amount for that. Then there's the transportation category, gas, car insurance. I'm going to just pay the car insurance. I'm not going to ask him to pay his own car insurance right now. It's all on one. It's on my policy. So it's all taken care of anyway out of that. So we're not going to ask him to do that, but he definitely buys his own gas right now, but typically it's with my money. So I'll help him with this. This will be out of the money that, at least part of it will come from the money that I will give him for his needs over and above his commissions, but he's going to have to budget. How much does he think he's going to spend in gas? Let's see. What other categories are there? The other one is clothing. I can't really see him buying a whole lot of clothes, but none of my kids really want to buy clothes, but it is a category. So let's let's look at that each on a month-by-month basis to see if they think they may buy some clothes for that month over and above what we would normally buy them. I certainly think we should be buying them their school clothes and stuff like that. But if a girl wants something special, then maybe we want them to budget for that themselves. Typically, I think I'll buy clothes for my children. Now, this is an interesting thing, though. So there's this other thing that they talk about, which is called special events, which would be like prom, things like that. So prom is not an emergency, right? That kids know when the prom is, and that's something that they should plan for. So Dave and Rachel is suggesting that you teach your children to buy their own prom stuff, budget for it. How much am I going to need for my tuxedo or for my dress, whatever that is? And you help them plan for that. And that becomes part of their savings goal. That's going to be one of the savings categories that will be in the budget. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of good opportunities here for us to teach our kids about money by doing a monthly budget with them. And I know it's going to be tough. I know that it's going to be strange at first to sit down with your children, teach them to budget and to go over a budget with them. They may not want to talk to you about everything that they want to spend money on, but it doesn't matter. It's our job to coach them and walk them through life in general and to teach them how to manage their money. And you know what? For some of us that aren't doing a great job with budgeting ourselves, it'll be a good thing for us too, because it will make us sit down and do a little bit better of a job of planning what we're spending our money on too. Because like I said before, we need to be good examples for our children. They learn more from watching us than they learn from pretty much anything else. So we want to be good role models. So if you haven't done this yourself yet, if you don't have a budget yourself, definitely do that right away. That way you have a little street cred when you start talking to your kid about them doing a budget. So that is really it for this episode. We're at 30-minute mark here. That's long enough, I think. So we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you're finding some value out of this. I know I'm getting a lot of value out of this book. I strongly encourage you to buy it. Smart Money, Smart Kids by Dave Ramsey and Rachel Cruz. I don't think you'll regret it. That'll do it. Oh, no, it's not going to do it. Listen, I apologize to you. If you had left a comment, I had asked you to leave comments on the website and everything, and a bunch of people did it, but I didn't know it because I'm new to this and I really don't know anything about websites or anything like that. But I finally hired a full-time tech person to help me with both my businesses. So lo and behold, I had a whole bunch of comments. So the comments are now posted on the website. They were hidden on the back end. So if you left a comment, I've responded to everybody's comments now. So that reminds me, please, if you've heard something that you like in these episodes or something that you want to share with us, go ahead and do it, please, in the comments section at freshstartforlife.com/podcasts. And you can go right to the individual. You can click on the podcast that you want to mention or talk about, and there's a comment section right there. So definitely leave me a comment or leave some comments if you have any. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the show on wherever you listen, whether it be Apple Podcasts or iTunes or Stitcher or any of those, or Google Play actually is another big one. Anywhere you listen, go ahead and subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Look forward to doing a lot more of this. Thank you guys so much. You guys have been great. I have definitely some very good loyal listeners, and I'm very excited. Anyway, we will talk to you guys all in the next episode.